So I want you to imagine you're standing right in the center of a warehouse, like a warehouse the size of a massive football field.
Okay, I am picturing it.
And it is completely filled, I mean, floor to ceiling, with perfectly identical, completely unmarked gray filing cabinets. Just rows and rows of them.
That sounds incredibly stressful, honestly.
Right. It is. Because you know for a fact that somewhere in this giant warehouse is one single piece of paper. And that paper holds a piece of information that will literally save your company millions of dollars.
But you have no idea where it is.
Exactly. To find it, you have to open every single drawer, pull out every folder, and read every single page one by one. And to make it worse, you have 20 minutes before the big board meeting starts.
Yeah, that's a paralyzing scenario. It really is.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, that's not some made-up nightmare.
No, not at all.
If you look past all the sleek laptops and the modern open-concept office furniture, that warehouse is the exact architectural reality of the digital back office in almost every modern corporation today.
It really is. We just have digital filing cabinets instead of metal ones.
Exactly. And that tension, that horrible feeling of just drowning in information while completely starving for usable knowledge, that is our mission for today's deep dive.
It's a huge topic.
It is. We are unpacking a really comprehensive blueprint today, one that's designed to take that chaotic, messy corporate hoarding situation and actually transform it into clear, actionable insight.
And we have some really phenomenal source material to anchor this deep dive today.
We do. We're pulling from a really detailed 5-part video series created by Larry and Coco. They're from Cocobites Solutions.
Right. And the series is titled Bridging the Digital Divide: Conversational BI and Agentic AI.
Specifically, we're looking at their Season 1 roadmap, which they call From Messy Data to Actionable Insights.
What I really love about their approach and what makes it so worth dissecting today is their core philosophy.
Yeah, they have a very specific way of tackling this, don't they?
They do. They're taking on these massive, complex enterprise data problems, but they do it by completely stripping away all the speculative tech claims and absolutely no tech jargon.
Which is so refreshing. It's usually just a wall of buzzwords with this stuff.
Exactly. Instead, they focus entirely on what they call requirement-led conversations.
So what does that actually mean in practice? Requirement-led.
Well, it means that instead of starting with the technology like buying a shiny new system and forcing the humans to adapt to it, they start with the human requirement. They build the architecture backward from what the people actually need.
That distinction is so critical because historically, I feel like the tech industry always operates in reverse.
Oh, almost exclusively in reverse.
Right. An enterprise buys some massive new database system, drops it on the employees' desks, and essentially says, here is the new syntax you must learn to do your job today.
Good luck. Here's a PDF manual.
Yeah, it never works well.
So let's dig right into how Larry and Coco actually solve this. And we're going to walk through all 5 steps of their transformation today. Sounds good. Let's start with step 1.
Which is this massive shift away from traditional spreadsheets. The source material refers to this episode as chatting with your data using conversational business intelligence or conversational BI.
Right, getting away from the endless rows and columns.
I mean, I think anyone listening who has spent a Friday afternoon just staring blankly at a spreadsheet understands the pain. But structurally, why are spreadsheets fundamentally the wrong tool for modern business philosophy?
Well, it's because spreadsheets basically represent a manual interpretation layer.
A manual interpretation layer.
Yeah. Think about the history of data analysis. For the last 40 years, human beings have spent all this time learning to speak the computer's language.
Oh, I see what you mean.
If you wanted to know your sales figures for the 3rd quarter, you couldn't just tell the computer you wanted to know that. You couldn't just express that desire.
No, you get an error message.
Exactly. You had to learn how to query a database using SQL, or you had to pull raw data into Excel and spend hours manually manipulating a pivot table.
So the burden of translation was put entirely on the human.
100%.
Yeah.
You had to learn the machine's language.
You essentially had to become a minor programmer just to get a really basic business answer.
Exactly.
I always compare traditional data analysis to traveling in a foreign country where you don't speak a single word of the language.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right, like if you want a coffee, you can't just order one. You have to literally hire a specialized translator. You tell the translator what you want, they walk up to the counter, speak to the barista, get the coffee, and then bring it all the way back to you.
And in the corporate world, that translator is your data science team or your IT analytics team.
Exactly. But the problem with that translator model is the sheer amount of friction it introduces.
Oh, the bottleneck is massive.
Let's say a regional manager has a sudden, highly strategic question on a Tuesday morning. They can't just get the answer. They have to submit a ticket to the analytics team.
And that ticket just sits in a queue with 50 other tickets.
Right. And then 2 days later, an analyst finally runs the query, builds a chart, and emails it back. By Thursday afternoon, the moment to actually act on that data has completely passed.
The business velocity just completely stalls out.
So conversational BI changes that entire dynamic.
Yeah.
It's like suddenly waking up and you're just fluent in the language.
You can just walk right up to the counter and say, I'd like a coffee.
Exactly. The data hears your plain English question and instantly generates a chart that you can actually read.
It removes that technical friction entirely.
And let me stop and play devil's advocate here for a second, because I know people are thinking this. This sounds a little bit like the magic wand promises we heard in the early days of AI.
Sure, the hype cycle.
Yeah, because human language is incredibly ambiguous, right? Like if I type into a system, hey, show me our best quarter last year, the word best is entirely subjective.
It is. Best could mean a lot of things.
Does it mean highest revenue? Does it mean highest net profit margin? Does it mean the quarter we had the lowest employee turnover?
Right. How does the computer know what you actually mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does it know without just totally guessing?
Well, the short answer is it doesn't guess.
Okay, but how?
This is exactly where a lot of those early conversational AI tools really failed. They would hallucinate an answer based on, statistical probability, and then they'd present it to you with total confidence.
And it would be,
Explicitly avoid this by anchoring their whole system to that rule we talked about earlier, requirement-led conversations.
okay, so meaning what mechanically? How do you actually force an AI not to guess?
You build a semantic layer
Yeah.
that sits between the natural language interface where you type your question and the raw database itself.
Okay, it's semantic layer.
Yeah. Before a user ever types a single question, the architects actually sit down with the business leaders and they define the requirements. They build a very strict data dictionary.
So they're essentially mapping out the whole ontology of the business.
Exactly. They literally define the vocabulary for the AI.
Got it. So they tell the system, like in our specific company, the word best in relation to a fiscal quarter strictly means highest net profit margin.
Yes. So when you ask the question, the AI parses your natural language, it checks that semantic layer, and it translates best quarter into a highly specific, mathematically sound SQL query for net profit.
And then it pulls the exact data and visualizes it.
Exactly. No guessing involved.
But wait, what if someone asks a question using a term that isn't in that strict dictionary? Like, what if a manager asks for the most stellar quarter?
That's the brilliant part. A properly architected conversational BI system won't just pull random data to try and please you.
So what does it do? Just fail?
No, it recognizes the gap in its semantic mapping, and it immediately asks you for clarification.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it will respond and say something like, I don't have a specific metric defined for Stellar. Do you want to see gross revenue, net profit, or units sold?
Oh, so it actively guides the human back to the single source of truth.
Exactly. It's a dialogue.
That makes a lot of sense. So the system isn't trying to be a mind reader. It's just a very strict interpreter mapping our messy human language to a highly rigid data architecture.
And that ensures the chart it hands you is always mathematically sound. Larry and Coco are very clear about this. No speculative claims.
And that completely removes the technical friction we were talking about.
Yeah.
It really democratizes curiosity across the company.
It does. Now, your marketing managers, your supply chain coordinators, the actual frontline people who understand the real-world context of the business, they can interrogate the data directly.
Without waiting on an IT ticket for 3 days.
Exactly.
But, removing that friction kind of creates a new behavioral challenge, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, if you make it incredibly easy to ask questions, you are still ultimately relying on the human to know what to ask.
Oh.
And crucially, you're relying on them to actually remember to ask it in the first place.
Ah.
Right. Like a regional manager might now be able to pull a complex supply chain report in 3 seconds flat. But if they forget to ask for it on Tuesday morning, the bottleneck still happens.
The human becomes the bottleneck.
Exactly. The data just sits there passively.
Which perfectly leads into the next phase of this blueprint. This is where the architecture has to evolve from being passive to being proactive.
Right. Which brings us to episode 2 of their series.
Yes, moving from conversational BI to what Larry and Coco define as agentic AI.
Specifically deploying smart AI assistants in the workplace. I want to spend some serious time on this because I feel like the word agent gets thrown around so much right now in tech.
Oh, it's the buzzword of the year.
It really is. A lot of people hear AI agent and they just think it's a glorified chatbot that remembers your name.
Right, or something that drafts a polite email for you.
Yeah. But the source material describes something fundamentally different here. They're describing autonomous systems deployed to handle repetitive workflows, automate background tasks, and vitally flag critical operational updates before they become crises.
It's a completely different level of utility. To really understand the mechanics of agentic AI, you have to look at the system architecture.
Okay, break that down for us.
So conversational BI, like we just talked about, is reactive.
Right.
It operates on a request-response loop.
It sits dormant until a human provides a prompt.
Exactly. But an agentic AI operates on a continuous, autonomous loop. It doesn't need a prompt from you. It is given a goal, a set of parameters, and access to a tool set.
Can you give me a mechanical example of that loop in action? Like, what is it actually doing in the background while I'm having my morning coffee?
Okay, let's take the daily workflow of a logistics coordinator.
Okay.
Every single morning, their job might be to log into a vendor portal, download a CSV file of all the shipping delays, format that file, and then cross-reference it against the internal CRM.
Just to see which high-value clients are actually affected by the delays.
Exactly. And then they have to draft warning emails to the account managers for those specific clients. That whole process takes a human maybe 3 hours of manual, soul-crushing data entry.
I call that digging ditches with a laptop. It is the worst.
It really is. But an agentic AI system replaces that entire workflow through API integrations and programmed logic.
So it does the whole 3-hour process.
Yes. The agent is programmed to recognize a trigger, say the clock hitting 6:00 a.m.
Okay.
At 6:00 a.m., it autonomously runs a script to ping the vendor's API. It retrieves the JSON data of shipping delays, it parses it, it queries the internal CRM for the affected client IDs.
Wow.
Then it uses a language model to generate context-specific draft emails, and it drops them right into the coordinator's inbox for review by 6:01 a.m.
By 6:01 a.m. That is insane. The human capital reclamation there is just staggering.
It changes the whole job description.
Instead of spending 3 hours moving data from column A to column B, the human spends 10 minutes reviewing the drafts and then has 2 hours and 50 minutes to actually strategize on how to fix the underlying supply chain issue.
Exactly. You're elevating the human to do what humans do best: strategy and relationship management.
But the material points out that the most profound application of this isn't even just the workflow automation, right? It's the predictive element.
The anomaly detection, yes, this is huge.
They talk about the AI flagging operational updates before they become crises. How does that actually work without just constantly overwhelming the team with false alarms?
Right, alert fatigue is a real problem.
Because if a system is constantly monitoring every single metric in, say, a manufacturing plant, there are thousands of minor fluctuations every second. How does the agent know the difference between a totally normal fluctuation and a brewing crisis?
It does that through the establishment of dynamic baselines and statistical thresholds.
Dynamic baselines.
Yes. The AI isn't just looking at a static number on a dashboard. It analyzes the historical telemetry of a machine or a process. It understands the moving average and the standard deviation.
Okay, so if a machine's operating temperature naturally fluctuates between, say, 180 and 190 degrees throughout the day, the AI knows that's perfectly normal.
Right. It ignores that. But if the agent detects a specific pattern, say the temperature hits 192 degrees, then drops back down, then hits 193 degrees, it recognizes an anomaly that's outside the standard deviation.
So it doesn't wait for the machine to actually catch fire at 220 degrees.
Exactly. At 193 degrees, it triggers a workflow, it autonomously flags the maintenance team, it cross-references the production schedule to see exactly what orders will be delayed if that machine is taken offline for an hour.
And it alerts the floor manager with all that context already gathered.
Yes. Before the crisis actually happens.
Now, I can hear a lot of middle managers getting very, very nervous right now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because if an autonomous system is constantly monitoring the factory floor, making all these connections, and triggering workflows, aren't we handing over the steering wheel to the machine?
People always worry about that.
How do you ensure humans aren't completely removed from the loop? I mean, are we giving it too much control?
You really have to look at the specific verb Larry and Coco use in their methodology here. The AI flags critical operational updates.
It flags them.
Yes. It doesn't autonomously shut down the factory line. It doesn't automatically fire a supplier because of a delay.
Oh, I see. So it's a radar system, not the pilot.
That is the essential architectural boundary. That's the perfect way to phrase it.
It just watches the horizon.
Right. The AI handles the high-volume, continuous data processing that the human brain is just biologically incapable of doing. It finds the signal and all that noise.
But then it serves that signal up to a human for the final decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It provides the visibility, the human provides the judgment, the nuance, the context, and ultimately the accountability.
Okay, so we have this brilliant, hypervigilant radar system. It's doing all this heavy lifting in the background. But here is the massive bottleneck that trips up almost every single major enterprise IT initiative.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right. It doesn't matter how smart the AI agent is. If that agent lives on a separate website, requiring a separate login, a VPN, two-factor authentication, and a completely different user interface, nobody's going to use it.
Never. The friction of context switching kills software adoption every single time.
Every time. Which is why the third phase of this blueprint is entirely focused on integrating these tools into the everyday grind.
Episode 3, Making Everyday Tools Work Together.
Exactly. The source material explicitly targets maximizing the existing tech stack by connecting things like Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, and Power BI.
And there is a very specific reason Larry and Coco isolate those 3 platforms in their architecture.
Why do you think they emphasize those specific tools?
Because in a massive enterprise, those are the 3 pillars of actual daily work. They represent where the business actually happens.
Right. Teams is the communication layer.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the arguments happen, the quick decisions are made, where the company culture actually lives.
Yes. And SharePoint is the deep storage. It's the digital filing cabinets from your warehouse analogy. It's the historical documents, the structured knowledge.
And Power BI is the analytical visualization engine we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Action, memory, and insight. But historically, in most companies, they are completely siloed from one another.
And the cost of those silos is cognitive drain.
Massive cognitive drain.
Let's look at the actual mechanics of context switching for a second.
Yeah.
If you are in a really deep discussion in a Teams channel about a client's declining revenue, and you need data to back up a point you're trying to make, what happens today?
You have to minimize Teams.
Right. You open a web browser,
Yeah.
you log into Power BI,
You navigate through some terrible folder structure to find the right dashboard.
then you have to adjust all the filters to isolate that one specific client. You take a screenshot, you go back to Teams,
Mhm.
and you paste it into the chat.
And by the time you've done all that, you've lost 3 or 4 minutes.
But more importantly, you've completely lost the momentum of the conversation. Studies on cognitive load show it takes the human brain up to 20 minutes to fully refocus after context switch like that.
It's devastating for productivity. Now, multiply that 20-minute penalty by a workforce of, say, 5,000 people, doing it 10 times a day.
The economic loss is staggering. It's millions of dollars in lost focus.
This is exactly where Larry and Coco's strategy of supercharging comes into play. You have to bridge that digital divide mechanically.
Meaning what?
Meaning you don't build a fancy new portal that people have to log into. You bring the intelligence to the surface exactly where the employees already live and work.
So how does that actually work under the hood? How do you put an advanced agentic AI inside Microsoft Teams without it just being a really dumb, rigid chatbot?
You utilize embedded integrations, webhooks, and single sign-on architecture.
Okay, break that down for me.
When an AI agent is deeply integrated this way, you can be in that exact same Teams chat, and you just type a command like, at Data Agent, pull the Q3 revenue variance for client X from SharePoint and visualize it.
Oh, that's the natural language query from phase 1.
Yes, brought right into the chat.
So what does the agent actually do in that moment?
Sitting right there in the Teams environment, it securely passes your user credentials via a token to SharePoint. It searches the unstructured data, pulls the relevant files, passes the numerical data to the Power BI API.
Wow, it's doing all of that instantly.
Generates the visualization, and then uses a webhook to post that interactive chart directly back into your Teams chat window.
All in seconds.
All in seconds. You never leave the chat.
That is incredible. It's like having an advanced Formula One engine, which is the AI agent, and instead of leaving it sitting on a workbench in the garage where it looks really impressive but does nothing.
You actually install it into the chassis of the car you drive to work every day.
Yes. You put it in Teams and SharePoint.
Exactly. But the transmission of that car, the APIs and the webhooks, that is what actually connects the engine's power to the wheels. Without that deep integration layer, the AI is completely isolated from the human workflow. It's useless.
Okay, so we've optimized the frontline worker. We've got them asking plain English questions. We have AI agents watching for anomalies in the background, and it's all seamlessly flowing right into their team's chat.
It sounds perfect.
It sounds perfect, but and anyone listening who works in enterprise IT knows exactly what is coming next.
Here comes the reality check.
The frontline tools are just the tip of the iceberg. The real nightmare of enterprise architecture lives in the basement.
The massive legacy infrastructure that actually runs the global business.
Exactly. Which brings us to the fourth major challenge, the source material outlines, connecting big systems.
Or, as they call it, taming the corporate behemoths, episode 4.
They specifically focus on bridging this massive gap between enterprise resource planning systems like SAP and agile cloud storage.
We really have to establish what an ERP like SAP actually is first, because for a lot of people, it's just a 3-letter acronym on a corporate memo.
Right. SAP is not just a piece of software you install.
No, it is the central nervous system of a global operation.
Give me an example of the scale we're talking about here.
Okay, if a company manufactures cars, SAP is tracking the raw iron ore from the mine.
Literally from the dirt.
Yes. It tracks the shipping container that ore crossed the ocean in. It tracks the shift schedule of the specific factory worker who smelted it. It tracks the cost of the electricity used on that specific day. And it generates the final invoice sent to the dealership.
It manages the entire physical and financial reality of the business.
All in one massive, hyper-complex relational database. And because it holds the most sensitive, critical, life-or-death data in the company, these systems are historically architected like literal fortresses.
Heavily guarded.
Completely. They're usually entirely on-premise and fiercely isolated from the outside world for security reasons.
But the problem is, modern business doesn't run on isolated fortresses anymore.
No, it runs on agility.
It runs on distributed cloud storage, remote access, and machine learning models that need massive amounts of varied data to even function.
So you have this huge collision. You have the immovable object of the legacy SAP system crashing into the unstoppable force of cloud agility.
And Larry and Coco's methodology centering on forcing those two totally different paradigms to finally communicate.
Yes, to create what they call a single source of truth.
Now, I have to push back hard here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of tech-savvy folks listening are going to say, what is the big deal? Just use an API.
Right, just plug it in.
Exactly. We live in an era where my smartwatch can talk to a satellite in space, which talks to a server in Iceland and updates my phone in milliseconds. The technology for systems to communicate has been around for decades.
It has?
So why is connecting SAP to an AWS cloud environment framed as some heroic, massive challenge? Hasn't the tech world solved this?
It's a fair question, but you are confusing the technology of connection with the architecture of integration.
Okay, what's the difference?
An API is just a digital pipe. Yes, you can easily plug a pipe into an SAP server and a cloud server.
Right.
But if the data flowing through that pipe doesn't make any sense when it reaches the other side, the pipe is completely useless.
What do you mean it doesn't make sense? Data is data. A number is a number.
Not at the enterprise level, it isn't.
Real.
Let me give you an example. Imagine a 100-year-old manufacturing conglomerate. They didn't build their systems from scratch yesterday.
No, they've evolved over decades.
Exactly. They acquired a competitor in Germany back in 2005, and that company used one specific customized version of SAP.
Okay.
Then they bought a supplier in Japan in 2012 that used a completely different legacy database.
Oh, I see where this is going.
So now they have massive tables of data where the column for customer ID is formatted as a 9-digit number in the German system, but it's an alphanumeric string in the Japanese system.
Ah, so the API pipe works fine, but the languages the databases are speaking are completely incompatible.
It's architectural chaos. If you just open an API and dump all that raw, conflicting SAP data into a modern cloud data lake,
You just have a huge mess.
you haven't created a single source of truth. You've created a data swamp. The AI agents will just choke on it.
So how do you actually bridge that divide mechanically? How do Larry and Coco suggest you tame that behemoth?
It requires a highly disciplined process called ETL, extraction, transformation, and loading.
But governed by that requirement-led philosophy we talked about.
Exactly. You don't just move all the data just to move it. You identify exactly what the business needs to know in the cloud environment. And then you build middleware.
Middleware. I like to think of that as a digital diplomat between the two systems.
That's exactly what it is. The middleware connects to that rigid, complex SAP database, and it extracts only the necessary data.
And then the transformation part.
That's where it standardizes everything. It takes the German customer IDs and the Japanese customer IDs and forces them into one format. It converts the currencies to a standard. It harmonizes all the timestamps so they align.
Then it loads it.
Yes, only after it's clean and unified does it load it into the Agile cloud storage. And that is when the AI agents and the conversational BI tools can actually use it effectively.
You're literally taking a chaotic, historically tangled web of isolated nation states and turning it into a unified functioning ecosystem.
It is a massive undertaking, but it's essential.
And when you finally achieve that, when SAP, the cloud, SharePoint, and Teams are all seamlessly integrated and flowing perfectly, you've built an incredible machine.
You really have. But that success instantly creates the final and perhaps most dangerous problem for a corporation.
The avalanche.
Precisely, the sheer velocity and volume of data that is now flowing upward.
Right. Because if every system is connected and the AI is processing everything in the background and you can generate any chart you want in 3 seconds.
The amount of information flooding the executive suite becomes completely paralyzing.
Which leads us perfectly to the fifth and final phase of this blueprint, cleaning up boardroom clutter.
This is episode 5, and this is where Larry and Coco pivot to focus entirely on the executive sandbox.
Specifically, the role of data governance in protecting the leadership's cognitive load.
I love that they use that phrase, cognitive load.
Me too. It perfectly identifies the invisible tax on modern leadership. Because 20 years ago, executives were starving for data.
They had to make gut decisions because the numbers simply weren't available in time.
But today, the exact opposite is true. They are drowning in numbers.
Right. Human working memory has hard biological limits. Cognitive load theory dictates that the human brain can only process a very small number of variables simultaneously.
And the whole job of an executive is to synthesize variables and make high-stakes strategic decisions.
But if an executive opens a digital dashboard on a Monday morning and they are confronted with 50 different charts,
Conflicting metrics from the sales team and the finance team.
and an incomprehensible web of technical jargon on the screen, their working memory is entirely consumed just trying to figure out what the dashboard is even saying.
They're burning all their mental fuel just deciphering the report, which leaves them with absolutely zero cognitive capacity to actually decide what to do about the information.
It's a massive failure of architecture.
Historically, the IT department's solution to this mess was just slapping on data governance.
Yes.
Yeah, governance.
But let's be honest about how data governance is actually viewed in the real corporate world. It is largely seen as a bureaucratic nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. It's an exhausting compliance chore.
It's the security team constantly telling you what you can't do. It's endless steering committee meetings and these massive PDF manuals that literally nobody reads.
Which is why the reframing in the source material here is so crucial. Larry and Coco explicitly state that data governance doesn't have to be exhausting.
Right, they position it differently. They position it not as a restrictive police force, but as an elegant curation tool. It is the core mechanism for cleaning up the clutter.
So how does that actually manifest? If governance isn't just about locking down permissions and passwords, what is it actively doing to reduce that cognitive load?
Mechanically, good governance ensures two things: data lineage and standardization.
Okay, explain data lineage first.
Data lineage means that when an executive looks at a revenue number on a chart, the system can instantly prove exactly which database, which specific table, and which calculation produced that exact number.
So there is no ambiguity whatsoever. You can trace it all the way back to the source.
Exactly. And standardization ensures that when the marketing dashboard says conversion rate, it uses the exact same mathematical formula as the finance dashboard when they say conversion rate.
Oh, wow. So it completely eliminates those endless boardroom arguments over whose spreadsheet is actually right.
Exactly. I often think of it like the back of house at a Michelin star restaurant.
Oh, I like this analogy. Go on.
Think about the kitchen, the SAP systems, the cloud architecture, the AI processing we talked about. That is the kitchen. It's a place of intense heat, massive complexity, raw ingredients, and chaotic movement.
Right, there's fire, there's shouting.
Yeah.
There are 50 different things happening at once to prep the mirror.
But the executive is the guest sitting in the dining room. They do not want to see the chaotic prep station. They do not want to be handed a raw onion and a list of supplier invoices.
Oh, they just want the meal.
They want a beautifully composed, perfectly curated plate set down in front of them. Data governance is the executive chef.
Ah,
It organizes all the chaos of the kitchen. It enforces the recipes so that the final output presented to the guest is uncluttered, focused, and completely trustworthy.
I see exactly how that curates the information.
Okay.
I have to question the ultimate promise they make here.
What's that?
The source material claims this level of governance and clarity leads to stress-free decisions for executives.
Yes, that is a bold claim.
Yeah, let's be real for a second. If an executive has to decide whether to close down a factory and lay off 1,000 people, or completely pivot a product line based on this dashboard, is that decision ever truly stress-free?
Never.
Doesn't that promise overstate what software can actually do for human emotion?
It sounds like it, but you're separating the stress of the business reality from the stress of the data reality.
No.
And that is the exact point Larry and Coco are making.
Explain that distinction.
Software absolutely cannot make the human reality of closing a factory painless, but it can entirely eliminate the stress of uncertainty regarding the numbers.
I see.
Think about it. If an executive is looking at a messy, ungoverned report, they spend 20 minutes doubting the math. They wonder if the analyst forgot to carry a one. They worry that the data is 3 weeks out of date.
So the stress is rooted in a fundamental lack of trust in the tools.
Exactly. But when the data is perfectly governed, visually clear, and the lineage is absolute, that specific anxiety just evaporates. Clarity breeds confidence.
The executive fully trusts the plate of food in front of them.
Yes. So they can focus 100% of their mental energy on the difficult reality of actually eating it. They shift entirely from deciphering the numbers to deciding on the action.
That is a massive paradigm shift for a leadership team. And when you really step back and look at the entire journey Larry and Coco have mapped out here, you realize it is a complete, holistic rebuilding of the corporate nervous system.
It really is. It's an architecture built entirely around the human experience rather than just deploying technology for technology's sake.
We started way back in the mud of that warehouse, looking at the human toll of endless manual spreadsheets.
And we explored how conversational BI ends that era.
Right. Using a strict semantic layer to translate plain English into complex database queries, ensuring the AI never hallucinates our guesses.
Then we moved from reactive queries to proactive agentic AI. We examined how autonomous loops handle the ditch digging of daily workflows.
Like the logistics coordinator getting their 3 hours back.
Exactly. And utilizing statistical anomaly detection to flag crises, like the machine temperature spiking before they escalate, while keeping the human firmly in the pilot seat.
Then we solved the context-switching nightmare by taking those AI agents and embedding them directly into the chassis of everyday tools.
Putting them right inside Microsoft Teams and SharePoint via webhooks and APIs.
Right. Then we descended into the basement to tackle the behemoths. We utilized governed ETL middleware to translate the historically rigid architecture of SAP systems into agile, cloud-based single sources of truth.
Taming the chaos of decades of acquisitions and mismatched databases.
And finally, we managed the resulting data avalanche by deploying data governance as an executive chef, curating the boardroom reporting to protect working memory and optimize cognitive load.
It is an incredibly powerful, cohesive roadmap.
It is. And the most important takeaway for anyone listening right now who feels trapped in that warehouse of gray filing cabinets is that this level of transformation is entirely achievable.
It's not science fiction. You just have to fundamentally change the way you architect the solution.
You have to start with the requirement-led conversation. You have to start with the human.
Absolutely.
And you can actually watch Larry and Coco execute this exact methodology, bridging the divide without any of the jargon, by subscribing to their series on YouTube.
It's a great resource.
It is. For those of you ready to transform your own corporate ecosystem from messy data to actionable insight, you need to visit their hub. You can find them at www.cocobitesolutions.co.za.
And if you want to start that requirement-led conversation for your own enterprise architecture today, you can reach out directly to the source at info@cocobitesolutions.co.za.
It has been a truly fascinating exploration today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly uncomfortable thought to chew on.
Uh-oh. Lay it on us.
We have detailed exactly how these autonomous AI assistants are evolving. They are monitoring the baselines, they are integrating into our daily chats, they are communicating with the deepest, most secure ERP systems. And they are mathematically curating these perfect, visually flawless reports to protect our cognitive load. They serve up the perfectly clear reality for the human to make a confident decision.
They optimize the human element completely.
But look at the trajectory we are on. If the AI is managing the workflow, detecting the anomaly, understanding the supply chain context, and mathematically proving the absolute best course of action,
I see where you're going with this.
at what point does the system stop merely presenting the data for a human to rubber stamp and simply start making the executive decision itself?
The line between a hypervigilant radar and an autonomous pilot is getting very, very thin.
It really is. Something to mull over the next time you type a question into a corporate dashboard. The tools to clear the clutter and find exactly what you need in that giant warehouse are finally here. You just have to decide how much of the search you're willing to hand over to the machine. Thanks for diving deep with us today.